So next up, let's talk a little bit about the different approaches and methods within epidemiology. So there are two different study types in epidemiology, experimental being one where you would create an experiment scenario or environment to be able to look at how things would be affected. The other is observational, and that's really what we work are going to be working in a little bit more. And within that observational area, it's more of a, take for example the study of the efficacy of a vaccine and how many people end up in a hospital. We observe the individuals who did get a vaccine versus individuals who did not. So it's observational and trying to see what is something that's being affected. And within observational, there are two different types of methods there: descriptive and analytic epidemiology. So descriptive epidemiology looks at when a specific population was affected, where and who in that population is it. Analytic is trying to take a look at how that population was affected and why. So, hey, we got another scenario for us to try to understand this in a different light, or maybe put it into practice. This scenario comes from the State Department in Georgia, where in 1982 the number of farm tractor associated deaths was described in terms of time, place, and person by using records from an existing surveillance system. So again, trying to understand what was really going on in that time, place, and what was the purpose of what was going on. So based on the data, we have a chart here where the number of deaths is looked at in relation to the hour in which that death occurred. And you see it broken up from AM and PM. As you could tell in the AM, there is a huge jump around 11 and 12, and then it immediately drops down or between 12 to 1. And then another spike around the 4 to 5 PM block, and then slowly goes down later in the day. So based on this collected data, we can make assessments and inferences. Maybe around 12 to 1, a lot of farmers in Georgia were going to lunch, so maybe they weren't out on their tractors as much. Maybe from 11 to 12, they were all getting really tired and hungry and maybe weren't as focused. 4 to 5, you could say something similar. Maybe they're ready to end the day, or they've just been out working for a long period, and that can cause an accident. And I would imagine from 11 to 12 p.m., the last hour of the day here where we did have an incidence of death, most farmers are likely not out on the tractor at that time, which could lead to the low amount of death. So we can create different hypotheses and try to derive a reason or maybe an action that we could take. Now, based on the same data, we can look at other groups. Again, we have the number of deaths, and that's divided up into age groups. So, what immediately jumps off to me is that being older is causing, or you're likely to be in a farm tractor accident in comparison to somebody who is a newborn. Obviously, from 0 to 9, you're probably not on a tractor as much. But the fact is, yes, we have this data, and we can look at what age groups are more at risk and say, like, maybe this group is a little more at risk than the 80 to 89-year-olds, but maybe there are less 80 to 89-year-olds on tractors. Maybe they're retired already. Maybe 50 through 69 is, somebody who is having a harder time being out. But how many farmers are actually out there? We would have to also determine what are the total number of farmers to say how much at risk are we at in certain ages. So even though we can look at this and try to derive things, it's not a total picture of the health outcome or what's at risk here. Another graphic here for the same data, we're looking at the state and where these occurrences are happening based on geographic place. And as you can see, the Northwest region has a larger number of cases. There's also a small or growing pocket in the South. So, we would look at this and say, where's the population most dense? Why is it happening there? Well, actually, you would have to find largish cities. Maybe in cities there are a lot less tractors, but there are more people, less farmers. What are those factors, and how do they engage and interact, and what outcome can we derive from that? So we're going to jump into a quick knowledge check so we can put that into practice.